Доброго дня! Вітаю вас на моєму першому незвичайному такому інтерв'ю. Це буде, сподіваюся, буде серія подкастів. Сьогодні в мене дуже незвичайна людина. Це не просто людина, це людина з великої літери. І це людина, про яку ми зараз дізнаємося більше, шановний Бері Гроп. І це інтерв'ю буде англійською мовою, тому що ви самі розумієте, що людина саме американець. Glad to see you.
Great to see you, Alec. Nice to see you.
How was your trip to Ukraine?
Eventful. It's been eventful coming to Ukraine. I've been coming to Ukraine for many, many years. As you know, I lived here. And traveling into Ukraine is more difficult, of course, than it used to be.
Mm-hmm. So can you describe who are you, what job you do, and... So start from basics about you.
Sure. So my name is Bері Gроп, and I'm a former American Peace Corps volunteer who lived in Ukraine. I think we'll talk about what that means a little bit later. So I lived in Ukraine before, and now I work as a school counselor at international schools around the world.
Mm-hmm. Can you give us a few words about what is counseling, and because in Ukraine we don't have quite a position here, and it will be maybe helpful to clarify for people. And how did you come to this position?
Okay, so school counselors, it's a faculty position in a school, but I'm not a classroom teacher. So school counselors are there to support students socially, emotionally, and academically. And so we work with students on career planning, on choosing the correct classes, and solving personal challenges that they might have in a school. I've been doing this many years. Other than the time I was in Ukraine, I was a school counselor or college counselor in the United States. And then after my time in Ukraine, I've been working in international schools with students in this way. Since that time, I've lived in Taiwan and China and Austria, and I'll begin soon working at a job in Poland.
Little spoilers, yeah? Okay, and you received classical education, yes? Classical psychology education.
Yes, sort of. My master's degree, magister, is in the field of educational counseling. So I was trained in this many years ago. I was trained in this to work with students in this way. We, as counselors, we are there to work with teachers and students and parents and community members to create a supportive environment for students in the school. There have been studies, scientific studies, that show that this is an important role. Creating a supportive environment for students helps students to achieve success in school, academically, and then beyond. So we kind of facilitate this environment within a school.
Mm-hmm. Can you share some insights on how you balance between theoretical knowledge and practical application while doing counseling?
Sure. Well, I think the theoretical knowledge is the background of what supports the applied practice, So I trained in these different techniques, and I continue to train and continue to learn as new techniques are developed and new strategies are developed. I do a lot of what we call professional development to learn about how to improve supportive environments in schools, how best to advise students, how to support them. So that theoretical knowledge is very, very important to understanding human psychology and human decision making, but then working with students either individually or in groups or throughout the school, again, to advocate for their success.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell us maybe most memorable success story of a student you have counseled that you are particularly proud of?
That's a very difficult question for me to say because, truthfully, I'm proud of all of them. I think that all students are successful. And success looks different for different students. For one student, it may be navigating a particularly difficult situation with other students. For another student, it may mean getting into their dream university. For another student, it may be learning how to be independent, or learning how to solve challenges, or learning how to work with people. All of those things mean success. I think that one of the best things that teachers and counselors and educators can do is to help students to learn how to make effective decisions. And the fact that if they end up with a result they don't like, they always have the power to choose their next step. So understanding that we have a role of choice, we have responsibility for what happens in our lives, helping students to develop that understanding, I think, is really, really important and powerful. And if I can get students to understand that, then I feel I've done a good job and I'm successful.
Okay, when I first open your Instagram profile, I see emoji and the word stoic. It seems like you are a dedicated follower of Stoicism, and you once recommended me a book, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. So how did you first encounter Stoicism, and do you integrate Stoic principles in your counseling or teaching, and how would you explain Stoicism to someone totally unfamiliar with it?
Sure. It's a very interesting question. How I first encountered Stoicism was in university, I was a philosophy student. And so when I was a philosophy student, I studied many different philosophers from around the world. And one of the areas that I studied were, of course, the ancient Greeks and the ancient Romans. And that's how I began to come across the ancient Stoics. And Marcus Aurelius was an emperor of Rome, and he is a very prominent Stoic. It's very interesting to me because Stoicism often overlaps with my field. The language and the literature and the studies and the theoretical techniques that we use often borrows from the language of the Stoics. So they had an insight and this understanding of personal responsibility and this understanding of living your life through your values and understanding that your values are how you accomplish things. And even how to stay motivated. So for me, I often rely on my values to keep me doing something rather than my motivation. So if I say I don't feel like doing something, that means I need to be motivated. If I say my value makes me do something, I don't need the motivation. I have a practice of doing something. So it's kind of adjusting my mind as to how to live, how I want to live. And that means valuing certain things like justice and freedom and choice and responsibility. And again, this language is often used in my field with students.
Okay. Let's travel into the past. So try to remember the day that you realize that, I need to leave the USA, and the first country in my list is Ukraine. Why Ukraine?
Sure. So that's an interesting story, and I think it's different than many other Americans who go to live abroad. As we were talking, my values are a big driver of how I live my life. And one of those values is my interest in serving other people. And this is what led me to the counseling field. And it also led me to become what's called a Peace Corps volunteer, an American Peace Corps volunteer. So the United States has an organization where adult Americans, can volunteer and go to serve in a particular country, and we have three roles. three missions, so to speak, when we're doing this. The first one is to bring our knowledge of our skills to that country, to that community. The second one is to learn about the people in that community, learn about the people in that country. And the third one, the third goal, is to share, to explain what you have learned from the people you lived with, their language and their culture, and to explain that to Americans. So again, I left in a not common way. I volunteered with this organization, and the organization assigned me to Ukraine. I didn't actually choose Ukraine. I was lucky. I was fortunate. So I was sent here initially in the year 2013. I was here in Ukraine from 2013 to 2014, and then there was the revolution, and the United States government took us away for our safety, but they allowed me to return in 2015. So I returned to Ukraine. I returned to Poltava in July of 2015, about 10 years ago. I returned in July of 2015, and I remained here in Poltava until January of 2017, which is when my service ended as a Peace Corps volunteer.
Can you share your experience of first arriving in Ukraine? Maybe how did you navigate language or cultural barriers?
Sure. It's a very interesting experience for volunteers. So when I first arrived in Ukraine, I had no language at all. I had no Ukrainian. I didn't speak any Russian. And so I was like a child. But Peace Corps places you with a family that volunteers to host you. And they feed you and take care of you and give you a place to stay for a few months while you learn how to live in the country that you're serving. So I lived with a host family who I still speak to very often. Anytime I'm in Ukraine, I go to visit them. And of course we have this could wait. It was only going to happen, we knew.
Yeah.
So I'm very close with them. And then they're my first Ukrainians.
Mm-hmm. Okay, from your perspective, how has Ukraine evolved over the past decade, and have you noticed improvements in Ukrainians' English proficiency since your first visit?
Sure. I think I see a lot of development in between my time first coming to Ukraine almost 12 years ago and this time now. Do we want to continue, Oleg, with this?
No, it's okay. I think God has blessed us.
Maybe it's important to hear it. So it's authentic. People will go, oh, he really is in Ukraine.
Yeah.
So I see a lot of development throughout Ukraine. The how people think and communicate, I think, has changed a bit. There are many things I still don't understand about Ukraine because I'm not Ukrainian.
Like
and
what?
So, I don't understand all of your politics. Politics is a very complicated thing. I only understand surface of your history. I know more about your history than most Americans, certainly, but I don't have the deeper, profound knowledge. And also, there are cultural elements in Ukraine and history that you all have that maybe you cannot read in a book, but it is shared in a family and is shared in a community. And I only will receive that if someone shares it with me, if someone explains it to me. So I have deeper knowledge of Ukraine than most Americans, but not nearly as deep as a Ukrainian person.
You mentioned that you worked in Taiwan and Chinese, and what can you say about Ukrainians and Taiwanese? Do they differ, or maybe they have some similarities?
I think I see some similarities between Taiwanese and Ukrainians. And the similarity that I see is the value of choice, the people's choice, and really valuing democracy. Many countries around the world, it's not, they take democracy for granted. And they take the ability to choose how you want to be governed and what your society looks like for granted. And they think, oh, it's not something we have to worry about. But Taiwanese think about this, and Ukrainians also, of course, think about this. So those are two very, very, and of all the places that I've lived, that is very striking, that similarity between Taiwanese people and Ukrainian people.
Firstly, I know you as a teacher of English, and secondly, as a counselor. Can you tell me how has navigating different cultures shaped your approach to teaching English?
So I think that, when you leave your own country, you're used to communicating in a certain way, and that understanding that people will understand you very quickly. When I'm at home in the United States, I understand all of the sounds and all the communication around me, and I don't have to think about what I'm listening to. But when you go abroad, you go to a different country that doesn't speak your first language, and especially if you're going to teach English, you begin to understand how similar you are to your own students. So when I'm in Ukraine, I'm challenged by language, or if I'm in Taiwan, I'm challenged by language. I can understand some things, I can communicate in some ways, but I have to work. And so if I'm teaching a student who is not a native speaker of English, I can recognize the challenge, and that sometimes, I have to confess, sometimes I pretend to understand something that I don't understand, just because I want it to be easy. Yeah, I want to get past this moment, yeah? And I understand that my students who I have taught English to also go through this process. But I will also say, and I think that you may remember, because I've said this very often, mistakes are our pathway to learning. And that our problem is that when we think that we shouldn't make any mistakes, then we stop working. When to live abroad means to be humbled every day. So I was humbled, and I am humbled every day in Ukraine because of my mistakes in grammar, or not understanding something, or a word I don't know. And the same happened to me in China and Taiwan and Austria when I lived in Austria. So, there's a quote by another Stoic, Epictetus, and he says, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish. So people will look at you and misunderstand you and see that you don't know how to do anything. Humble yourself and recognize that's the pathway forward to improving.
Quite interesting. Hashtag Stoic. Again, when you open your Instagram, you see that you're doing some quite interesting stuff with Aida, a friend of yours. You explore Ukrainian idioms. And can you tell me, please, as a foreigner, what insights can you share about Ukrainian language and its wit?
Well, your language is very rich. Extremely rich language. When I first heard Ukrainian language, I began to equate how you speak with how many poets you have. So, you have monuments to your poets in your cities and your towns. You name your streets sometimes after your poets. And when I saw this and then listened to how Ukrainians speak, I thought how lyrical your language is. And I like to think that you speak in poems. That the way you communicate is natural for you to be poetic in a way that it's not the same for an English speaker, a native English speaker, someone whose first language is English. But also, especially learning with Aida, is your humor. I think that Ukrainians have a very, very
Dark humor.
specific humor. I think that we would call it a slow burn, this idea. So in my interactions with many Ukrainians over the years, I have noticed that many people will say some funny thing, but not reveal in their face that it was a joke. So, and kind of let it sit until the person understands, oh, that was a joke. And it may take, a few moments. I think that that's very Ukrainian. We have some of that humor in us, but I think it's very particular to Ukrainian humor.
Maybe. Do you remember some significant proverbs that you will never forget in Ukrainian, maybe?
That's a little bit difficult for me to think about, like on the spot.
In English, because
Even on the spot, even on the spot in English, it's difficult for me to think about it. If I went back and looked at it, I would go, "Oh yes, of course." But at this moment, I think I'm under the spotlight, and it's a little difficult for me to remember.
Okay. And one question before you go to Ukraine, did you dive into some cultural moments like literature, maybe music?
Sure. They Peace Corps before they sent us to learn, to become volunteers. They sent us a number of materials for us to begin to learn about Ukrainian history, Ukrainian language, Ukrainian culture. So we received those materials, but that was so long ago that I don't recall it as in these materials. I just remember it as what I know, if that makes sense, because it was maybe reaffirmed or explained to me again in Ukraine. We had trainers as volunteers. We had people who taught us language. We had people who taught us, Ukrainians, who taught us about the culture here. And so I don't always remember what was from a book that I read and what was from my experience here.
But did you actually meet your expectation when you arrived here about what happened, and when you arrived here, what they told you about Ukraine?
I didn't know that I would like Ukrainians as much as I do. I just didn't know. I had no real expectation. When I first arrived, I really was like a baby. I didn't know how to ride a marshrutka. So
We sometimes also do. No.
So I remember she's like my sister, Marina, who I lived with. She took me in the morning. I was going to my lesson, and she took me on the marshrutka, not put me on the marshrutka, but she was on the marshrutka with me and walked me to my lesson. So I really was like a baby who didn't know how to do things. Now I can navigate a lot of things in Ukraine, but at that time I had to learn. So my expectations were exceeded, but I was really just a beginner when I arrived.
So you take marshrutka without Marina nowadays?
I can take a marshrutka by myself, yeah.
Good for you. Okay, you told that volunteering is to share. In your opinion, what lessons can Americans learn from Ukrainians? And the second part of this question is, what keeps you returning to Ukraine, even when it means sleeping in a hallway rather than in bed?
Can you repeat the
the
first
first
question?
part. What lessons can Americans learn from Ukrainians?
I think to know Ukrainians personally is to really be inspired by you as people. You as individually. I think that Ukrainians, because it's far away from the United States, I think that people think that somehow Ukrainians are very, very, very different from Americans. But you love your families, you have your friends, you want to have a good life, you want to have a good future for your children if you have children, or good future for yourself. I think it's very, very similar. We speak different languages and we have different histories, but we're human beings and we have the same care for each other within our communities and our people that anybody does. I think that's very important for Americans to understand. Ukrainians are really, in many ways, just like us. And
What keeps you returning to Ukraine, even when it means sleeping in the hallway rather than in bed?
yeah, again, I value my experiences here. I'm grateful to the people who were my friends here, who I care about and who took care of me when I lived here. You know, again, I am a foreigner, and I needed a lot of assistance to live here. People explaining something, even someone in a magazine being patient with me and taking care of me. For me, it's a powerful experience that I had when I first came. I arrived and I began to take lessons. And one day, I took the wrong marshrutka. And I exited the marshrutka in the wrong place. So I phoned my teacher and I explained, I'm going to be late. I will be late. And she said, Barry, it's okay. Do you need me to come and get you? I said, no, that's okay. So I began to ask people in the city with my limited Ukrainian, I was there maybe 2 weeks, where the location of the university was that I was going to. And I got directions all over the city, so I wandered around this city. I think people didn't always know where I wanted to go. But one lady stopped and walked me through the entire city and took me to the place that I needed to go. I will always remember that lady. She didn't speak any English, and I spoke very, 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 5 words in Ukrainian maybe. And she took me to where I needed to go. She spent the time to take care of me. I was a stranger.
So if this lady is watching this video, please put some commentary down below this video.
That would be great. And please message me, because I would love to communicate with you again.
Okay, to wrap all this up, I think that my students will be also watching this video. And what advice would you share with them to inspire or maybe to guide them?
So, to remember that mistakes are the pathway forward, that to try to be a beginner, to listen to the wisdom of their teachers, who care about them, to find people that care about them, to understand that there are others who care about them and want them to be successful, to really understand that, and to do their homework. Домашнее задание. So students should really continue to do their homework. It's a way that they improve and understand things.
Hashtag do your homework.
Yeah.
As you put always wear a mask, then you change always believe in Ukraine in your Instagram.
Yes. Believe in Ukraine.
So, thank you
Super.
for your interview.
Thank you. Дякую вам.